Hi, we're out on the range today, so please bear with the gunfire you hear in the background. And fair warning, most of what I'm going to do today is talk. And I have a disdain for lecture, but this is a subject that a lot of people have asked me about, and I think it's an important topic to discuss, so here we are. And the question is, people are asking, do I think it's a good idea to mix ammunitions? Well, there's three things to that. One, what do you mean by mix ammunition? Two, why would you do that? And three, do I think it's a good idea? Well, as far as what that means, for military purposes or for hunting scenarios, there's a bunch of different things people do. But mostly what people are asking about is in your concealed carry, personal protection, or home defense firearm. And what I mean by mixing ammunition is that a lot of people will take some number of expanding projectile ammunition, usually hollow points, and then some number of non-expanding projectile ammunition, usually a full metal jacket, and then stagger those in a magazine. Or with a revolver, you just load every other one and create the same effect. There's also people that will use all expanding projectiles, but they'll mix different brands of ammunition. And that's what most people are talking about when they talk about mixing ammunitions. Which brings up point two, why would you do that? Well, as far as mixing your different types of ammo, that's done most of the time with the thought of situational effectiveness. Now the concept is that in your concealed carry type of firearm, most people are going to load some kind of hollow point. The expansion gives an enhanced effect in the intended target, while retarding penetration enough that you don't have the bullet going out the back and creating a danger for innocent bystanders. But sometimes if the target is particularly rotund, you won't get enough penetration from some type of hollow point, so people will mix in full metal jacket ammunition to create that greater penetration. There's also the thought that you might have to shoot through barriers where a full metal jacket round can give you an enhanced effect. And you can what-if yourself ad astra, but the idea is that you're going to hopefully exploit the advantages of both types of ammunition. Now, as far as loading different brands of ammunition, actually I worked with somebody just recently that said that he did that, and his reasoning was that on the very slight chance that you get a particular type of ammo that comes from a bad lot. Now, ammunition, if it's made by an even halfway reputable manufacturer, and it's not grossly old, and it's been stored under proper conditions, centerfire ammunition is extremely reliable. You'll have failure rates of less than 1 in 1,000. In fact, even to say 1 in 1,000 would be high. But it does happen occasionally that you will get ammunition from a bad lot. For example, this box of Federal ammunition is a box of 50 rounds of 38 special 158 grain round nose lead bullets. I tried to fire 20 rounds of it, and in that 20 rounds I had 4 failures to fire. All of the rounds had good dents in the primers, and no, it was not the firearm. I checked the pistol with several other brands of ammunition. It was the ammunition. This came from a bad lot. So it does happen. However, this box of ammunition represents, I think, the 3rd time I've seen that in my entire life. So it happens, but it's rare. Therefore, mixing 2 different brands of ammunition, the chances you're going to get 2 bad lots are 1 in a million, if that. And so you'll at least be sure that you have some ammunition that's going to work. And that's the reasoning most people will put behind the various types of ammunition mixing they do. Now this brings up the 3rd point. Do I think this is a good idea? In a word, no. I don't do it, and I don't recommend other people doing it. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Let me show you one of them. Now I've got 2 shoot-and-see targets in my Smith & Wesson Model 638, and I'll go back 10 yards and I'll shoot these targets with 2 different types of ammunition. Now, the ammunition I was using for the top target was Remington green and white box, and for the lower target was Hornady Critical Defense, and you can see a difference in the point of impact. There would be those who would argue that a difference of 2 or 3 inches when fired at a distance of 10 yards isn't enough to make a difference, but to me it's noteworthy, and depending on what type of firearm and what type of ammunition you're using, you may see a difference even greater than this. And so if you're going to mix ammunitions, you've got to make sure that whatever you're mixing is ammunition that will all hit in the same place. Now, with some handguns like this Beretta 92 FS, even at distances of 25 yards, I cannot detect a difference in point of impact with virtually any 9mm ammunition I use. But with some handguns, the difference is there. Now, the second reason why I am not a fan of mixing ammunitions takes a little longer to explain. And a lot of what I'm going to say are my opinions, and my opinions are based on my education and my experience. Different people have different experiences, so they have different opinions. And what I'm talking about is, as someone who has firearms for concealed carry, personal protection, or home defense, you are under a great deal of scrutiny from the people you associate or work with, from the media, and from law enforcement personnel, both the police and the district attorney's office. And I want to make it clear that this is not the format for me to bust on the police. I'm not trying to insult anybody. The police represent themselves as highly trained professionals, and quite often they are, but I'm telling you things that I've seen and I've experienced. And in the unfortunate event that you as a citizen have to use your firearm, you are going to be under a great deal of scrutiny, and that scrutiny will become exacting. And things that you would think should have nothing to do with the case, things like your fashion or hairstyle choices, or how much melanin you have in your skin, quite often can become a very big part of your case. And something you may very well be scrutinized on are your ammunition and firearm choices. And when it comes to mixing ammunition, this is something that the police quite often associate with criminal behavior. Let me give you an example. I was watching that show Cops, and a police officer confiscates a revolver from someone, and it's a 6-shot revolver, and it's got staggered ammunition in it. He's got 3 rounds of one type staggered with 3 rounds of another type. And I can't remember this police officer's exact words, but it was something to the effect of, anyone who would load a revolver like that would only do so with murderous intent. Well, murderous intent is not a phrase that you want associated with you. There's also the thing of staggering ammunition or mixing ammunition is seen as something a criminal does. Now, a couple of people in my crew are current or retired police officers, and I could bore you for an hour with the anecdotes they tell me about mixing ammunition as something criminals do. It would appear that although criminals quite often have guns, they also quite often don't know much about guns or ammunition, and they are notorious for improperly loading firearms, incompletely loading firearms, and mixing their ammunition. Improperly loading firearms, I mean such as the person who had a handgun that was an auto-loading pistol in caliber .22 long rifle, but had it loaded with .22 short ammunition. Wouldn't even function properly. There was the guy who had the .38 special revolver, but had it loaded with .38 super automatic ammunition, which, yes, some .38 special revolvers will chamber .38 super auto. Not a good idea, but that's what he had. Then there's incompletely loading. Now, a lot of people will take a handgun with a 15-shot magazine and only load it with 14 rounds. They think that that will make the first couple of shots less likely to have a malfunction, or that will put less tension on your magazine spring. And there's some legitimacy to that point of view. But I'm not talking about that. I mean a criminal that only loads his 15-shot mag with 11 rounds, because 11 rounds is all the more he had. He didn't buy a box of ammunition. He only has whatever he can pick up or pilfer somewhere. And you'll see that leading to mixing ammunition. A criminal will have a .357 Magnum revolver. It's a 6-shot revolver, but he's only got 4 rounds in it, 2 of which are .357 Magnum, 2 of which are .38 Special, one's a round-nosed lead, and one's a semi-jacketed hollow point. Criminals are notorious for doing that. I dealt with a criminal once who had a 12-gauge shotgun, and he had all his ammunition in this paper sack like a lunch bag. Now, all his ammo was 12 gauge, but he had 2 3/4 inch, he had 3-inch Magnum, he had a couple of different types of birdshot, a couple of different types of buckshot, some slugs. He must have had a dozen different types of ammunition in this bag of about 30 rounds. So what the police are telling me and what I've seen myself appear to be consistent. Criminals are notorious for mixing up ammunition. In fact, there was a case, I was watching a TV documentary about a murder case, and the victim was shot with a .22 auto-loading rifle, caliber .22 long rifle. And the forensic examination revealed that all the recovered projectiles, I think he'd been shot 8 times, they were all fired from the same gun, but there's all these different types of .22 projectiles. Okay. Well, according to this documentary, when they caught the criminal and he confessed to the crime and he was asked, "What's with the different ammunition?" his reply was that he had done that erroneously thinking that was some kind of forensic countermeasure. So we see that mixing ammunition is quite often perceived as something criminals do. In fact, I was at the range once shooting with someone who was a police officer, and I had all this mixed up different ammunition, this old junk I wanted to get rid of. Well, I hand him a .38 special revolver and I shoot this. He pops it open and looks at the ammo, sees all these different head stamps, dumps the ammo out in his hand, and there's several different types of .38 special ammo. In fact, one round wasn't even .38 special, it was .38 Smith & Wesson. And he looks at all this stuff and he says, "Gee, Paul, did you get this gun from a criminal?" Mixing ammunition is something that is perceived as criminal behavior, evidently quite often legitimately. And so when it comes to mixing different brands of ammunition to avoid the possibility of a bad ammunition lot, or mixing different types of ammunition to increase your situational effectiveness, you may do that with very legitimate reasons behind it, but I think the advantage you get from doing that is greatly outweighed by the possibility that your actions will be perceived by law enforcement as the actions of a criminal. And this is the main reason why I do not load with staggering ammunition or mixing ammunition, nor do I recommend that anyone else does it. So if you've sat there and watched me ramble all this time, thanks for your attention, and thanks for watching the mixed ammunition video.